What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here in our podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a short one this week. Not going to lie, just 4 things to discuss. But of course, it's going to be a busy December. We got year end, top 10 lists galore coming soon. This week we have new music. We have Twice with their latest EP Strategy, Rosé's debut album, Rosie. Also going to talk about Spotify Wrapped, all the data we got this year, as well as my own personal stats. And lastly, Luca Guadagnino's new drama film Queer, starring Daniel Craig. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and let's get into it. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with my reaction to Spotify Wrapped 2024. I'm going to talk about the global United States data that Spotify shared, as well as my own personal list, my general thoughts about Wrapped every year. A lot to get into. Let's jump in. Overall, I'd say I'm pro Spotify Wrapped. I am pro listening data being shared. Frankly, I would pay more to have more data insight into this, and of course, I know there are other tracking services that you can link to Spotify or use instead and whatnot. There's things out there for sure to track your consumption, but I just find it so fascinating. You know, I'm a Letterboxd user. I keep lists on my Google Drive. I like to keep data and just looking at the data, understanding what I did in a given year. In this case, with music, I find very interesting. Obviously, that's not for everyone, but with Spotify Wrapped. I'll get into my stuff later, but the global information is always fascinating for what it does and doesn't tell us. Globally, for the top 10 artists, it's a lot of familiar faces, nothing too surprising here. Number 10 is Colombian singer Feed, which I wasn't expecting. Number 9, Ariana Grande. Number 8, Kanye West. Number 7, Peso Pluma. Number 6, Travis Scott. Number 5, Billie Eilish. Number 4, Drake. Number 3, Bad Bunny. Number 2, The Weeknd. And number 1, unsurprisingly, Taylor Swift. So if you think about that list, almost everyone on that list released a new album in 2024, which is a big part of making a list like that. Now, in that top 10 globally, the artists who did not release new albums this year are Travis Scott, Drake, Bad Bunny, and The Weeknd. Travis, I think it's quite impressive that he's here without new music. Really speaks to just how massive he is. You think about the shows he does in Europe and how big and crazy they look. The guy is massive. Drake here without an album, not surprising. He's done that before, even though there's not that many times where he doesn't have an album out this year. A nice reminder that despite everything that happened with Kendrick this year, Drake is still an institution, as is, of course, The Weeknd, who was the number one most listened to artist on Spotify in terms of the monthly listeners metric for almost the entirety of the year before finally getting knocked off for Bruno Mars. Of course, that's a metric that measures reach, speaks to playlist exposure and whatnot. It's not actual total consumption, hence why Taylor is still number one. Important to keep that in mind. Overall, though, I think it makes a lot of sense here. The Ariana album, despite not being her most popular album by any means, is still a massive deal. Kanye releasing 2 albums of up and down quality, to say the least. Check my reviews, but he's got a big footprint, especially globally still. In terms of songs, top 10 globally, this is pretty similar to the US stats, not entirely though. 10, Die With A Smile, that's the Bruno-Lady Gaga duet. Number 9, Taylor's Cruel Summer. Of course, that's a catalog hit, being in the top 10 globally on Spotify. It's pretty impressive. Number 8 is One of the Girls. That's the Weeknd, Jenny, Lily Rose Depp song from The Idol. Of course, that's a song that came out last year, then blew up to such a crazy degree this year. I did not realize it was going to be in the top 10, though. Kind of fascinating. Number 7 is Too Sweet by Hozier. Number 6 is End of Beginning by Geo, the Joe Keery song that, of course, blew up on TikTok again last year and then really stuck around. Number 5, Lose Control by Teddy Swims. Number 4 is Gata Only by Floyd Manor. Number 3, Birds of a Feather by Billy. Number 2, Beautiful Things by Benson Boone. Did not expect that to this degree, especially in the global stats. Number 1, Sabrina Carpenter's Espresso. Nothing too crazy there, I guess, besides just the general surprises. Like, I didn't know Beautiful Things was that big. I knew it was big, I didn't realize Cruel Summer and End of Beginning were around like that. Cruel Summer just seems to be potentially I don't know, it's a big gap, but I think there's a chance Cruel Summer could like really rise up the global all-time Spotify lists, which I believe is still Blinding Lights and Shape of You at the top. There's a chance Cruel Summer could eventually get there. Of course, there's billions of streams to go. We'll see. Top 10 albums globally, again, pretty similar here. Number 10 is The Weeknd's Starboy, again, just catalog behemoth. Number 9 is Fireworks and Rollerblades by Benson Boone. Number 8 is Taylor Swift's Lover, again, catalog. Number 7 is SZA's SOS, which came out the end of 2022, impressive. Number 6 is 1989 Taylor's version. Number 5 is Ariana's Eternal Sunshine. Number 4 is Mañana Será Bonito by Karol G, impressive. That's the biggest Latin album of the year. And then number 3, Short and Sweet by Sabrina. Number 2, Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billy at number 2. And of course, number 1, Torture Poets Apartment by Taylor. Also, I thought globally, just quick note, they had the audiobook stats. I just wanted to shout out The Fellowship of the Ring was the number 2 audiobook on Spotify Premium. And number 8 was A Game of Thrones, the first book in A Song of Ice and Fire. I thought that was cool. Looking at the US stats, it's a little bit different, but I think the big thing here with the artists is, of course, the presence of country, which shouldn't be a huge shock. Number 10 was Metro Boomin. I did not really expect him to make it all the way here off the strength of the albums with Future in the beginning of the year, but he did. Number 9 was The Weeknd, despite not having any new music this year. Number 8, Travis, the same. 7 is Kendrick. 6 is Future. 5 is Kanye. 4 is Morgan Wallen, and 3 is Zach Bryan. Again, the 2 country behemoths in the U.S. And then number 2 is Drake. Number 1 was Taylor. I think the takeaways there, of course, besides the catalog stuff, Drake still beats Kendrick in terms of consumption. That's far from the end-all be-all. It's far from something that's even that important for that matter, but it is still noteworthy. I would not have guessed that The Weeknd would be surpassed by Travis in the United States, because obviously it's not the case globally, but that was true. Interesting. Top 10 U.S. songs. Again, the kind of country and folk presence stands out. Number 10 is Noah Kahan's Stick Season. Number 9 is I Remember Everything, the Zach Bryan Casey Musgraves duet. Number 8 is Birds of a Feather. Number 7 is Beautiful Things by Benson Boone. Number 6, Good Luck Babe, Chappell Roan. Number 5, Tommy Rickman's $1 Million Baby, really cool. Love that he's here. Number 4 is I Had Some Help, the Post Malone Morgan Wallen duet or collab. Number 3 is Shabuzi's A Bar Song. Number 2, Kendrick's Not Like Us. Number 1, Espresso. So yeah, you can kind of see the difference in terms of U.S. consumption versus global consumption when you compare the two lists there. And again, that kind of continues with top 10 albums in the U.S. Number 10 is 1989 Taylor's version. Number 9 is Zach Bryan's self-titled. Number 8 is Morgan Wallen's The Dangerous double album. Number 7 is SZA's SOS. Number 6, Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billy. Number 5, Rise and the Fall of a Midwest Princess from Chappell Roan. Of course, that's an album, as we know at this point, came out last year but did not blow up really at all, and then to the massive degree that it did until this year. So it makes sense that it makes the list. Number 4, all the way up at number 4 is Noah Kahan's Stick Season. Number 3 is Short and Sweet. Number 2 is a different Morgan Wallen album, One Thing at a Time. And then number 1 is The Torture Poets Apartment by Taylor Swift. So that's all the big data we got there. Always find that interesting. Looking at my own lists, and before we do, a lot of feedback on how Spotify Wrap went for people this year. I think the AI podcast was a big dud. There was the controversy about what it said about One Direction, for example. The lack of getting just your top genres at all this year, I think, was a huge miss. Like, that's something that should always be provided, and some of the other stuff I don't think people really care about, that's for sure. Like, I don't really need the AI-generated description of my month based on my consumption. Like, when I went to Korea in October and listened to a lot of K-pop, my October was Hallyu Strut K-pop. Like, that's cool, but why don't you just tell me if K-pop was my number 2 or 3 genre for the year? That's more important to me. Unsurprising for myself, my top artist was Charlie XCX. Of course, I loved Brat, and I also loved the Brat remix album, so there was a ton to get into with that. My number 2 artist was Heady One, who released a new album this year. I went back to a lot of his catalog stuff towards the fall sometime, and then didn't expect him to make the list again for me, but he did. Number 3 was Tommy Rickman, because $1 Million Baby and also especially Devil Is a Lie, I just really replayed a lot, and of course he released an album. Number 4 was aespa, number 1 K-pop act for me this year. I just found a few of their songs, Whiplash and Hot Mess in particular, incredibly catchy. So I went back to them a lot. It makes sense. Number five for me is Fred again, who released an album. And also, I was listening to his song 10 a lot because I used it in an Instagram Reels edit for one of my trips. So that, brings me back to the song a lot, and thus it kind of ratchets up the list. Similarly, my top song was "Piece of Your Heart" by Medusa. That's the EDM banger from several years ago. At this point, that's a song that I'm going to be using in an upcoming edit I've already planned. So I listen to that a lot, specific part of it a lot. So that was number one for me, beating out 2 and 3 Apple and 360 from Charlie. Then number five was Not Like Us, which I expected to be here. Number four, kind of strangely, was Larger Than Life by Backstreet Boys, which is definitely a song I listened to a fair amount at the beginning of the year just because I was kind of stuck in the catchiness of it. I don't think it was really my number four most played song of the year. I don't know. Um, a bit perplexing, but I'm not too critical. But yeah, overall my consumption was 48,000 minutes, which I believe was down a little bit from last year. I think I was close to 60 last time. Either way, it says I'm top 5% of listeners worldwide. Listen to a lot of podcasts as well, so that's a big part of it. But yeah, Spotify Wrapped, I like it. I hope they get better. Let's do less AI next time. Stick to the good stuff. You don't have to create tons and tons of new features. I just want the data. But let me know, what you think of Spotify Wrapped? How would you feel about your own personal stats? Let me know. And for more music reviews and music discussion, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Queer, the new romantic drama film from Luca Guadagnino, starring Daniel Craig and Drew Starkey. This is the second film from Luca this year. Of course, Challengers came out in the spring after being strike delayed, so this was not planned all along. Nonetheless, we're back. Luca also working with this Challenger's screenwriter once again, Jason Karitzkis. And Queer is an adaptation of the famous William S. Burroughs novel. That novel, or novella rather, short, came out in 1985, but I believe it was written and not finished by Burroughs in the 50s. And of course, it was released once he had become this big, kind of countercultural icon and significant, writing figure. This film premiered back at Venice earlier this year, then is beginning a limited release from A24. I really struggled with Luca Guadagnino's Queer. It doesn't have much at all to do with the performances. I like Daniel Craig a lot as William Lee, the William S. Burroughs stand-in character, this wealthy American expat living in Mexico City during the 1950s. I just did not connect with the relationship between Craig's William Lee and Drew Starkey's Eugene Alberton, this recently discharged American Navy serviceman who catches the eye of Lee. The relationship and the obsession at its core from Lee's side, I just never fully wrapped my head around. I thought the relationship was incredibly cold the entire time. Drew Starkey's Eugene character is also so quiet and reserved. There's just not a lot of expression here. I just had a really hard time being invested in their journey. And because William Lee is such a mess between his own repressed loathing and his heroin addiction, his alcohol addiction, etc., he's not a fun character to be with, nor is he adept at being able to express himself. I just really struggled with spending time with these characters. The movie looks amazing, like it's gorgeous period setting. I love the stuff in Mexico City, but as the movie progresses and we go south into South America, I just really was so uninvested with the story. I thought the fantastical elements that pop up infrequently also don't work at all. I think the ending is just kind of flat, honestly. Yeah, I was really disappointed by this. Like, I really can't overstate it. Like, the William Lee character, sucks. I just couldn't stand it. I get a lot of it. I think the characterization makes a lot of sense. I think the Craig performance is good. This is Craig doing a more flamboyant performance similar to what he does as Benoit Blanc in the Knives Out movies. Watching him wear various guns on his hip, literally saying that he's not a effeminate gay man, and he looks down upon that. Like, he kind of understands his thoughts about himself, but also on the other hand, watching him just kind of be drunk all the time and pursue various young men he finds, whether they're also gay or not. He's just not someone to really root for per se, because he just comes across as like a hot mess basically. And then the relationship with Eugene is so unrequited. I just feel like there's no heat to it. I'm sure people disagree. I'm sure there are some people that were super into this and it's a bit more abstract, pure presentation of longing and desire and obsession and things like that. I could understand that read on it, but that's just not how I felt. Drew Starkey, I'd never seen him before. He blew up on Netflix as The Outer Banks. His like he's a handsome guy. He looks good in the tailored clothes he's wearing, but like the character is so quiet. He doesn't even have that many lines because William Lee speaks a mile a minute, talks all the time. So it's just like that disconnect for me. I just had a hard time with. I really like Jason Schwartzman in a supporting role. He's all bearded up, a bit portly, playing Joe, this friend of William Lee, who's also gay. He has some great comedy in the movie. Leslie Manville is unrecognizable in the back half of the film, kind of coming up out of nowhere. But I thought everything in I believe it was Ecuador, the Ecuadorian jungle, I just wasn't connected to it at all. Their desire to, Lee's obsession, desire to connect deeper via this plant drug that perhaps can teach telepathy, revealed to be ayahuasca. Yeah, I just I don't know, bro. Like, do you have anything else going on? Like, I don't know. I just once we got like halfway through and they're on their journey south, they're in Peru at one point, and I just didn't understand Eugene's side of things either. Like, why are you going along with this when you show seemingly no affection back, apart from the steamy sex scenes we do get from time to time. I just had a hard time understanding what was going on with the relationship. In small roles, you have Omar Apollo as a guy William Lee hooks up with. Cool to see him acting. Of course, he's a singer. David Lowery has one scene. Of course, he's more famous as a film director. Shout out The Green Knight. But yeah, man, I think Luca, he's certainly someone who has, of course, covered this kind of subject matter before, whether it's A Bigger Splash or, of course, famously Call Me By Your Name. Like this type of storytelling, this type of subject matter, it's not out of the Luca purview by any means, but I mean, coming off Challengers, this was not what I was looking for, to say the least. And I think it just doesn't really work in the end. At one point, people were talking about the Craig performance. Could it be Oscar nominated? I think given the competition for Best Actor, I just don't think this movie's going to be loved enough. I think the reception's more kind of like mixed positive, but they're not rave reviews by any means. So I would not expect Craig to get through. I think this movie was probably going to largely be blanked in award season. But hey, you take some swings. Luca had Bones and All, which worked, but didn't work amazingly. I think Queer's kind of in that boat, in that tier in terms of his recent work. But yeah, let me know. Did you like Queer more than me? I'm sure there's tons of people out there that did. If so, please let me know what you like more about it. What am I wrong about? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Twice's 14th EP/mini album, Strategy. 6 new songs from Twice to cap off an amazing year that they just had. Really a whirlwind blockbuster year for this group that's celebrating 10 years together at this point. The Twice machine was really moving on all fronts as they graduated to stadiums when performing in the United States and just released so much music this year. Just to recap, they released their 13th EP, With Youth, at the beginning of the year. They've released a Japanese album. They've released 2 solo albums from Nayeon and Shui. And then they also had the Misamo subunit release, their second release. Now they're giving us Strategy in December. Just a incalculable amount of music from a group that seems to never stop. And frankly, I think if they wanted to take a little bit of a break, I would understand because they've been so busy this year. Twice's 14th EP, Strategy, is one of my favorite releases they've ever dropped. I think the title track, Strategy, featuring Megan Thee Stallion, is actually one of my favorite Twice songs, bar none. I love how the vocals are all spread out. Every member gets a moment in that first verse, and then you have that pre-chorus from Nayeon really flexing the vocal strength as one of the key vocalists in the group, leading into the chorus from Gio and Jungyeon. Those vocals pop. The vocal strength is on full display. This is a really fun song. The hook is so catchy. I love the synthy bass line. And then Megan Thee Stallion glides on this beat with a classic flow that she then switches up into almost a Doja Cat type flow. It's a home run of a song. I was not expecting Megan Thee Stallion and Twice to collaborate twice this year. Of course, they hopped on the Mamushi remix just a few weeks ago, and he had actual Twice members rapping, which was quite fun. But I think the EP keeps going with track two, Kiss My Troubles Away. Another highlight to me, the rapid drum tempo really keeps this going. I'm not sure if there's almost like xylophone as well under the hood of it, but it's a very fun pace. Track three, Like It, up tempo again, very synthy pre-chorus, still pretty fun. Sweetest Obsession, we're keeping the tempo going. I think the beat here is just okay. The vocals don't really pop too much. I think the chorus is kind of weak, but the verses are a lot better. Track four, Keeper, this is the first time we really slow down over the course of the release. It's I think the song's okay. But then track six, Magical, kind of surprisingly, almost like a house beat that then kind of morphs into a pseudo Christmas, wintry song with these like chimes on the chorus. Very holiday vibe for sure, even if it's not overtly a Christmas song. And the last song is just a strategy version without the Meg feature. So, like Twice seems to always do, it's mainly a short release. There's not a whole lot here, but I think it's one of my favorite releases they've ever dropped, just because I think this is a really fun, almost like diversion from Twice. The bubblegum pop confectionery sound that they've become so massive doing for such a long period of time at this point. You don't really get that too much on Strategy. This is a bit different. It's a bit more throwback, still very up tempo, very lively, but it's a bit outside of their normal wheelhouse, and I think it works really well, and it speaks to the talent this group has, as we know, but also to me presents an opportunity for Twice to reinvent themselves at least a little bit and keep things fresh. Because to me, this was a very fresh, very fun, energetic release from a group that is never keeping us waiting long for new music. So the opportunity for the group to get stale and release groaner projects is very easy. But I think with a project like Strategy, the desire to kind of reinvent their own wheel a little bit is really refreshing. It's really cool. And the Twice machine at JYP keeps going. There's really nothing bad to say about it. We'll see what solo albums we get next year. I'm sure we'll get some. Definitely looking forward to getting some more. Maybe a Chaeyoung album. We'll see. But let me know, what did you think of Twice's Strategy? What was your favorite song on it? Do you agree it's one of their recent highlights like me? Let me know. And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Rosé's debut album, Rosie. Rosé, of course, 1/4 of Blackpink. And as we know, the Blackpink members are in the midst of a solo music onslaught. Lisa giving us 3 singles, Jennie giving us a single, Rosé giving us a massive lead single leading up to this album. I expect Jennie and Lisa albums in 2025. Doesn't seem like Jisoo's focused on music too much right now in the solo front. Nonetheless, this is obviously a fun time for Blackpink fans, as we know that Blackpink will continue in the new year, having renewed their contracts with YG after a lot of questioning if that would happen. But notably, all 4 Blackpink members did not re-sign their solo output to YG. As a result, they've linked up with Western music labels, with Rosé, of course, signing on with Atlantic Records for her solo music. And this decision across the board for the members makes a lot of sense, because the YG management of the Blackpink machine was routinely criticized. There just wasn't a lot of music from that group, and there was not a lot of collaborations outside of their system. People know this at this point. I don't have to belabor that point, but it's exciting to see the possibility of what's to come with other people involved creatively, apart from YG and Teddy Park and all the familiar faces. And let's just say the dividends of Rosé signing with Atlantic paid off almost immediately, because her debut single, a solo single, in this cycle, of course, she released those 2 solo songs, about 3 years ago, right? But this cycle, the first single, APT, features none other than Bruno Mars, also an Atlantic Records signee. And this song, when it released in late October, just went completely nuclear. This song has completely crossed over into mainstream pop. We are well beyond the K-pop sphere when it comes to this track. And you look under the hood of it, it has Bruno Mars co-producing and co-writing the song alongside Rosé, but also a lot of other songwriters were involved with that song, and big, high-profile mainstream writers like Lily Allen and Omer Fedi were in the mix here. And it's just really cool to see a major label really invested in one of the Blackpink members in this case, Rosé. APT, just to put the numbers in perspective here, is approaching 550 million streams on Spotify. It's got 500 plus on YouTube. This is a massive song that's on commercials on TV now, and you know, Blackpink fans, Rosé fans deserve credit, but also you have to cite the Bruno effect with this because Bruno Mars this year actually unseated The Weeknd as the number one uh, most listened to artist on the platform when it comes to Spotify monthly listeners. Now, that's not the end all be all metric, but it is impressive considering Bruno only released two new songs this year, the Lady Gaga duet and APT with Rose. So, as a result, with this, Rose has 60 million monthly listeners. She's number 29 on that metric right now. It's absolutely crazy. And it's good because hopefully this will bring a lot of people who never heard of her before to her music, to her career, at least to her solo career. So we hope it continues. And the success of APT makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's inspired by this Korean drinking game, but ultimately, like it's just a really well crafted, bit of pop punk, honestly. This awesome pre chorus vocally from Rose, and then just an incredibly catchy chorus. Like it's a vocal tick that just gets immediately stuck in your head. It's a great piece of writing, even if ultimately the song is a bit simple. I love when Bruno and Rose harmonize together in the second verse as well. The bridge towards the end also kind of ratchets back up the energy on the song. It's a big banger for sure, and it's been awesome to see it become so successful. Of course, I wasn't really expecting this sound from Rose, nor was I expecting it to continue on the full album, just because she is more of the singer songwriter, guitar on the lap type performer. This is not really to her general vibe, but it's fun to see this from her as well. I'm happy to say that Rose's debut album, Rosie, is a great success. Following the gargantuan success of APT with Bruno Mars, she's released an album that feels congruous to that song, but also more in line with the type of music you expect from her. I think this is an album that's going to resonate with a lot of listeners because this is emotional, lyric driven music. And Rose, who has a striking, passionate voice when she belts out on ballads and also a fun energy when she's on more up tempo work, she's kind of right at home on this material. Listening to a song like Toxic Till the End with its big chorus, its very noticeable guitar, positioning of an X as the lyrical focus of the song, it's very much existing in the world of Taylor Swift, and you get that again on a song like Game Boy later on. This very much feels like a pop album in 2024 in the best way, but it also feels very much like a Rose album in terms of what we expect from her as a performer and as a writer. I would say this ultimately exceeded my expectations in terms of what I expected this to be. Track 1, Number One Girl, the second single, also co-written and co-produced by Bruno, even though he's not on the song. That's a song that, I think from other performers I probably wouldn't care for too much because it's a pretty simple, straightforward piano ballad. But Rose, the way she belts it out, like I think it's pretty compelling. The flourishes that she can do vocally. It's not like she's hitting like a crazy high notes or anything. That's not her style. But I just think the way she can kind of modulate her voice a little bit, up and down her range, it's really enjoyable. The second song, 3 a.m., was one of the highlights for me. I think the chorus is great on this. I love the way the tempo picks up as we get to the chorus. Kind of just acoustic guitar with drums. Again, the kind of like light pop punkish energy you got in APT is also on this song. Track 3, 2 Years. I think this song is kind of musically plain, even if the songwriting is pretty solid. But then, as I mentioned, the next song, APT, as we know, that brings us to Toxic Till the End. This is a huge banger. It's a very energetic, big chorus from Rose. And that leads into Drinks or Coffee, where we start to get some synths for the first time. Another really nicely written hook. I think the bass hits on this. A little bit of like self-harmonizing in verse 2 is quite fun. Then we get APT, and then we get Game Boy. And I think Game Boy, the beat on this song absolutely rocks. I love the way the guitar strumming kind of carries the tempo along. And then it's just really awesome singing from Rose across her vocal range. Probably the best pure pop songwriting to me on the album. I think this song writing wise a little bit more involved than APT. And in general, I think this 4 song stretch of Toxic Till the End, Drinks or Coffee, APT, and Game Boy is absolutely fantastic. And then from this point is where the album kind of fades out for me. These last 5 songs are just not as strong as the beginning of the project. Stay a Little Longer, another ballad, strong singing from Rosé, but not the most memorable song. Not the same. At least you have a bit more melody on this one. It's just okay. Call at the End. This one's a bit slight to me. Not much to celebrate about, in my opinion. Too Bad for Us. Again, kind of more of the same. But then at least I think the closer, Dance All Night. This one, a bit more up tempo. You have the drums with like some hand clap or something. At least it has a little bit more energy to take it out. So I think that last stretch, like you have to, I think, really be connecting with the lyrics to enjoy that, because to me that's the most staid section of the album. But that 4 song stretch plus 3 a.m. throw a number one girl like that's really good. If you read or listen to a lot of the press that Rosé's done for this album, and she did a lot of it, you can get a sense from her that she was not super creatively fulfilled as a member of Blackpink. Makes a lot of sense. I think probably all the members in the group would feel that way. It's a common sentiment when you're in part of a larger ensemble like that in pop. Makes sense. But this feels like a really great way to make up for lost time. It's also been super cool to see Bruno do so much press and promotion for APT throughout this cycle as well. He very much feels a lot of ownership and reverence for the success of the song, which is pretty cool. It doesn't come across as just like a check job or something Atlantic hooked up. Like, he seems to have a really cool relationship, professionally at least, with Rosé, which is cool to see. And yeah, at this point, it's like, oh man, I would love this Rosé solo career to keep going, and the fact that she's signed to Atlantic with this, it'll probably actually have some momentum now and not just get completely forgotten, right? Let's look back to when Blackpink first did solo stuff on YG. Jennie released one solo song in 2018, and then it was nothing for years, right? We're talking one single. I like to think Rosé, with Atlantic's help, would have a more steady output, right? In the short term, of course, we know that she'll be back with Blackpink in 2025. That has been said many times by YG. They're going to go on tour once again. So, hoping the new Blackpink music that preludes that performing is cool. Of course, we welcome it. We need more of it. As we know, there's only so much Blackpink music out there, despite the career they've had since 2016. We'll see. And the 3 Lisa solo singles recently suggest an album from her is on the way. Jennie gave us Mantra. She's talked about an album. So we'll get more Blackpink solo stuff soon. But I think this Rosé album, Rosie, is setting a pretty high bar, and it's in a sense, it's not really a K-pop release at all. It's from a K-pop singer, but it's very much Westernly produced, almost entirely English project, working with Western songwriters and producers and whatnot. But hey, that's okay. Globalism of music. We've been wanting Blackpink to work with people in the West for years, with a few exceptions. The success of the Dua Lipa feature, the success of Lady Gaga feature, right, suggested Blackpink had a lot of room to navigate outside of K-pop, and YG just never made it happen. So we'll see what happens in the future. But let me know, what did you think of Rosé's debut solo album, Rosie? What was your favorite song on it? What do you like most about it? And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do for the pod this week. Next week, we have a few more things to discuss, namely a handful of movies. We have The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim, the anime Lord of the Rings film. Curious to see how that one goes, to say the least. The trailer was not my favorite, to be honest. We also have the latest Sony Spider-Verse film, Kraven the Hunter, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson. And on Netflix, we'll have Maria, starring Angelina Jolie. The conclusion of What We Do in the Shadows on FX, its final season, exciting and bittersweet at the same time. And then I'm not sure if September 5 will be playing by me yet. If it is, I'll definitely be talking about that. But otherwise, we'll see what else comes up. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.